Hey, good evening. It's Wednesday evening. Welcome to the Utopian Baseball Universe. I'm Joey Buchholz. I've got three scheduled guests tonight. We're still waiting on one, but I've got Brett Bamford and Paul Freewald with me tonight, so a unique show. We're talking Detroit Tigers. This is a Tigers team that made the postseason last year. They hosted the White Sox in the North Division wildcard game. They were upset by the White Sox, but the Tigers had a unique team last year in that they had the best pitcher, Jack Morris. They had the batting champion in Ty Cobb, and they had the RBI champion in Hank Greenberg. So there's a lot of talent on this team, a team that finished in the top 5 in hitting. And despite having Jack Morris have one of the best years pitching-wise last year, the team did struggle a little bit with team ERA in the bottom third of the league. So we're going to get to the Tigers roster reveal here momentarily, but first I want to again introduce my guests. Thank you for being with us tonight, Brett and Paul. And like I said, we'll try to bring Matt on here shortly, but Brett, let's start with you. We've got some different perspectives tonight. Brett, you live in the area, Detroit area.
Yep.
Tell us how you became a baseball fan and maybe share some early Tigers memories for us.
Sure. Yeah, I became a fan basically from birth. My family goes back to when the Tigers started in Detroit. My great-grandfather was there to watch Ty Cobb. My grandmother was there through all 4 championships in her life. My dad was a 10-year-old kid when the Tigers won the World Series in 1968. And he was always a fan after that point, so I basically had no choice but to follow in their footsteps. I don't mind. Some of my earliest memories involve just watching baseball at my grandma's house and listening to her root on the guys, and she knew everyone. I went to games more than I don't know how many games I've been to. I've been to so many just because I've been fortunate to live in the area my whole life. Always got to go down every summer. I would say some of my favorite memories that stick out as a kid would be the first time I went to an opening day game. I was about 8 years old. Walked around the whole stadium, which seemed like a huge thing at the time, because it's just huge when you're a little kid. And it was Old Tiger Stadium, and we saw everything all around the whole area, all the vendors and everything outside. It was really neat. And the whole experience of the game was always cool for me when I was a little kid. I could still see, it was one of those old stadiums where you walk in, and then as you're going up the aisleway into the stands, you see the green of the grass come into view and the brown of the dirt, and it just captures your imagination immediately, especially as a little kid. And it was always awesome. And I would say maybe the crown achieving moment of my sports life was I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the final game at Tiger Stadium. That was an awesome experience. The best part was the post-game ceremony where all these old Tigers came out, took their positions one last time. You know, you looked around the stadium, no one had dry eyes in the whole place. It was just a really awesome experience. I don't think at the top that even seeing, a championship game is not quite the same as seeing like everybody there and everybody loving it. It was awesome.
That's great, man. 4 generations. That's unbelievable. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Sorry, guys.
No, that's okay. So we're talking about, earliest baseball memories. And Matt, if you want to tell the viewers how you became a fan and maybe share some early memories of being a Tigers fan.
Cool. Sounds good. I am a Pittsburgher. And I know a lot of people have kind of a father-son story to baseball. My father and I actually went to one game in his entire life, and it was in 1998 at Three River Stadium, Pirates Cardinals, and it was the one game where McGuire was not in the lineup. John Mabry took his spot at first base, and the rain delay, I think, took longer than the amount of playing time in the game. And by the time it was done, the place was empty. We had the place to ourselves. At the time, I would have probably called it the most depressing day at the ballpark, but looking back in hindsight, it was, kind of a special memory. Not knowing then that would be our first and last game that we ever went to together. 2006, I made my first trip to see a game in Detroit. That was my first year having Pirates season tickets. The All-Star game was in town, so that was a big reason. And when the season ended, I just wasn't ready for it to be done. So I decided to get a single ticket to ALDS Game 3. Got to see Kenny Rogers versus Randy Johnson. The Tigers won that game 6-0. Drove out and back in the day, got there early. And as good as the game was, what sticks out in my mind about that trip the most was there was still very, very, very much the remains of Tiger Stadium. And I remember walking there, and it was quiet and kind of seeing through the gates. And it just filled me with such a sense of, boy, I wish I could have been here when. If there's one that got away, I never got to see Forbes Field. I was born too late. But if I could have gone to Tiger Stadium. But the 2006 team was so appealing because it was such a who's who of early 90 Pirates. You had Jim Leland, Lloyd McClendon, Andy Van Slyke, Don Slott, Ralphie Belliard, all of these guys who broke my heart in 92, I got to see again, now, forgiven and a chance to root for them. So, that was sort of my introduction to the Tigers universe, so to speak.
Nice. And we got Paul Freewald with us tonight. Paul's out in Texas. And Paul, why don't you tell us what your ties are to the Detroit area and the Tigers?
Well, I was born and raised in Austin, Texas, and then my dad got transferred to go work for Detroit Diesel in the mid-late 70s. And that was when, I believe it was 78, is when the middle infielders, a couple guys named Trammell and Whitaker. We weren't used to seeing baseball on TV every day because they didn't have the Astros or the Rangers on every day. But when we moved to Detroit, it's what made me fall in love with baseball. Was watching, Whitaker and Trammell and Lance Parrish. And the first baseball game I ever went to was at Tiger Stadium. And walking up that ramp and seeing that cathedral, the way the bleachers were just right in your face. I mean, just walking out there was just magic, and then seeing these guys that you worshiped. I was 10 years old, I think. It was probably 78. And it's like, man, I'm 40 feet away from Alan Trammell. There's Lou Whitaker, there's Lance Parrish. And so, I fell in love with the team. It made me fall in love with baseball, basically. And, unfortunately, 75 to 80 something wins every year, but you watch them on TV, every night. And it just absolutely made me fall in love with baseball. And, we moved back to Texas in 1980, but I still followed them. And, but we couldn't see him every night, and they didn't show the Astros. There was no ESPN. So I would look in the paper and I would see what these guys had done, Trammell was 2 for 4, I think in 78, they didn't have a 300 hitter. And, but I was still, a fan because of Trammell and Whitaker and Parrish. And then my first major league game was at Tiger Stadium. That image of walking through there and seeing that stadium just stuck with me forever.
Nice. Let me ask you guys a question. So obviously this is, like I said at the top, this is a unique show, and I want to get some different perspectives here. Obviously the concept of the Utopian Baseball Universe is that we're letting our imaginations kind of run wild with all the different possibilities as far as what we could see on a daily basis. So, Brett, I'm going to ask you, now, it doesn't necessarily have to involve a tiger, but what would be, give us 1 or 2 dream matchups that you would most like to see in this environment. Now, this could be pitcher versus pitcher. This could be pitcher versus batter, or it could be, the idea of 2 everyday players facing each other in a 3-game series. Give us 1 or 2 examples of something that you might be looking forward to within this type of environment.
Something that comes to the top of my mind immediately would be seeing the reputation of the tough guys. Ty Cobb step in the box against Bob Gibson. That's kind of a cool thought to me. I like the idea just of, Whitaker and Trammell anchoring the middle infield with Kaline in right field. The best more recent Tigers all together in one field. It's just, I like just the thought of that is really awesome. And just thinking about, you hear guys like, McLean, last guy to win 30-plus games against some of the more modern guys. What would he do with them? And it's like there's so many different combinations you can come up with. I think they're all really cool to think about.
What about you, Matt? What kind of matchups, if you were to close your eyes and imagine, what kind of matchups are you most looking forward to seeing?
I think what I think about, and I hope this isn't veering too off, is I think of how many great Tigers there were on bad teams. And I think, if you take a guy who was one of the faces of the 90s, a Travis Fryman, and you put him in a lineup with other guys where he actually got some pitches to hit, what that would have done. If you had him at third base with, Trammell and Whitaker in the middle there, what that could have done. I mean, here's a guy who was such a great contributor to Detroit, but had no support for so many of those years. What could have been done when you really combine some of these guys from other eras. I'd like to see what would happen, in a battle to see who's going to be your starting catcher. Is it going to be, Pudge or Trammell and everything there, or Pudge and Parrish, excuse me, if they're going for the same position, what you look at there, if, some of these guys who are lobbying to be the starting guy. So, those are the things that appeal to me, I'd say.
Great. And I love that point about, taking guys that were on lesser known teams and seeing how they can do in the same lineup with some of the more obvious guys like Cobb and Cabrera and things like that. What about you, Paul? What kind of matchups are you looking forward to seeing?
Well, I think Brett stole my thunder. Bob Gibson versus Ty Cobb. I mean, Bob Gibson, obviously they lowered the mound because of him, and obviously Ty Cobb, greatest hitter ever lived, 366 or something like that, lifetime average. And Bob Gibson with that under 2 ERA, that's a tough one. Anybody against Cabrera when he won the Triple Crown, heck, Jack Morris against Cabrera, Gibson and Cobb, forgiven. When you first asked that question, that's the first thing that popped in my mind. And, Babe Ruth pitching against, whomever, who knows what Babe Ruth would have done had he stayed as a pitcher. The great story about him when he got thrown out after the first pitch, and the guy that came in ended up throwing a no-hitter, but he didn't get credit for a no-hitter because he didn't face all 27 players because, Babe Ruth had walked that first guy. And so it'd be interesting to see, what Babe Ruth would have done. And, anybody against Sammy Sosa or Mark McGwire, Justin Verlander, against some of these greats. Sorry that the Astros had to take them away from y'all, but that's a tough question. I mean, there's so many, who's the better catcher, Johnny Bench or Pudge? It's hard. That's a hard argument. Pudge had that rocket of an arm, and so did Johnny Bench. I don't know what the batting stats ended up being like. I think Johnny Bench probably had the better stats at the plate. Man, there's so many. Nolan Ryan versus, Babe Ruth. That's a tough question.
So and these are all great. And actually, I think I threw a poll up in a Tigers group recently, and Bob Gibson versus Ty Cobb was the winner of that poll. I think it's just intriguing to all the different combinations. Now, being a Milwaukee guy, there's two things that I find interesting is that you're going to get a chance for Cecil Fielder to compete against his son. And Harvey Keene, who you'll see is going to be a member of this Tigers roster, is going to get to compete against a team that he managed to the World Series in 1982, the Milwaukee Brewers. And actually, Matt, you'll be interested to hear that the Tigers and Pirates are actually in the same division in the Utopian Baseball Universe.
Yes, notice that.
So the Tigers and Pirates will play 12 games against each other each year, 6 in Pittsburgh, 6 in Detroit, in the Utopian Baseball Universe North Division.
Well, I guess probably Clemente's only game in Tiger Stadium would probably be with the 71 All-Star game, so it'd be nice to see him get to play there again.
Yep, he's going to play there every year, at least 6 games a year. And then who knows if they were to meet in the postseason. So one more question I want to ask you fellas before we get to the roster is, let's talk, because I know we've got people watching tonight that are curious to get your takes on the current the Detroit Tigers Major League Baseball franchise coming into this 2021 campaign. So we'll start with Brett. Do we have high hopes for this Tigers team in 2021?
I think we have high hopes for development this year.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to compete for any championships this year, but I think this year is going to tell us if we're going to be able to compete in coming years quickly or not. A lot of pitching prospects should be seen this year. I don't know if our hitting prospects are really going to get there, but I think, as we all know, pitching wins ball games more than anything else. So if those guys start to hit that we have for pitching, we can supplement a little bit with free agents when other guys get there. But I think our hitters are looking like they're going to improve as well. So it's just going to be a good year watching a little bit the minor league progression of some guys and seeing what guys do when they get their chance in the majors this year. I'm looking forward to it just to see what happens.
How far away is Torkelson from being an everyday player?
They're saying he needs some more seasoning, probably next year come up, but he's looking like, I'm thinking starting in like AA, maybe AAA by the end of the year.
Okay. What are your thoughts, Matt, on this Tigers team for 2021?
Well, I think the sexy pick in the division certainly has been the White Sox, and there's all the excitement now with La Russa coming back to manage baseball. So I think if Detroit can win a lot of the head-to-head games in the division, especially with the extra wild card, they might have a shot to be at least in the conversation until Labor Day, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Any thoughts on this current team, Paul?
I have not been following them, to be honest with you. I've been watching my Astros and my Rangers, so I'm not qualified to answer that question. But, with the extra wild card, who knows? Everybody's in the game, I guess.
Yeah.
As long as you got decent pitching, who knows, Astros and Rangers being in the same division, I'm not crazy about that because, my teams are going against each other. But like I said, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that question.
All right. Fair enough answer.
Can I throw one more thought out there?
I'm sorry?
Can I throw one more thought out there?
Yeah, of course.
I was just thinking, with your Milwaukee connection, if the Tigers can pull like a 2017 Brewers and have an interesting season earlier than expected, that would be pretty awesome. So you never know.
That's the beauty of baseball is that, it sounds like a cliche, but like on April 1st, everyone's in first place. Everyone's 0-0. Actually, as a kid growing up, the 87 Brewers were picked in most of the magazines, and most of the experts had them 6th or 7th in the AL East. They went on to win 13 straight games to start the season. And if it wasn't for a 12-game losing streak in May of that year, this team is right there at the end. I think they finished 6 or 7 games back. So if they would have won half of those games during their losing streak, they're heading into the final weekend of the year with a shot at the division. And this is, of course, before wild cards or anything. So, look at the 91 World Series. You had the Twins and Braves, 2 last-place teams from the year before. We've had 5 or 6 wild cards win a World Series. So that's the beauty of the game is that it just depends on the chemistry of that current team and if they have momentum heading into September. So I'm really looking forward to it. Now, before we get to the actual roster reveal, we're going to highlight some highlights from the schedule. So the Utopian Baseball Universe schedule, opening day kicks off on Friday, March 26th. So we're going to reveal that here and see that your Tigers open at home against Colorado Rockies. Memorial Day at Cincinnati. Independence Day at home against the world champion Atlanta Braves. The Braves won the Utopian last year, beating the Reds in 5 games last year. On Labor Day, the Tigers will be home against the Twins. And then the Tigers finish the season September 26th at Cleveland. So there's going to be, I anticipate a lot of offense in that Tigers-Rockies series to start the season. But let's get to what everyone's been waiting for. Now, the manager of this Tigers team is Jim Leyland. Jim Leyland gave me a call. As you guys all know, Jim Leyland has my cell phone number. And Jim Leyland gave me a call today, and we're going to get these gentlemen's reaction to the opening day starting lineup of your 2021 Detroit Tigers. So here we go. Leading off, playing center field, Ty Cobb. Batting second, left fielder, Sam Crawford. Batting third baseman, Miguel Cabrera. Hank Greenberg batting fourth and playing first. Al Kaline batting fifth and playing right field. Mickey Tettleton getting the start on opening day at catcher. And then we've got the aforementioned Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker batting seventh and eighth. So what about that? You know, any team where you got Trammell and Whitaker hitting seventh and eighth has to be stacked.
Where did he have Cabrera playing in the field, not first base?
I have him at third. I know he came up as a third baseman. I have Greenberg at first. I had to keep that bat in there.
I like that, yeah, because third base, I was between Kell and Fryman, so I like your creativity there.
Well, what I wanted to do, so like in a utopia, where I'm thinking everything is kind of like perfect, is that you're getting, Cabrera's bat at the peak of his career, but you're getting the guy that could, handle the glove a little bit at third base. So I think it maximizes the offense for this team. And then Jack Morris getting the start. He was the most valuable pitcher last year. I believe his record was 17-4. He had an ERA of 2.38. So Jack gets the start this year. I'll get your reaction shortly, but I want to share the rest of the bench here. Lance Parrish makes this ball club. Cecil Fielder, Charlie Gehringer, Nick Castellanos, if I'm saying that correctly. Harvey Kuenn, Kirk Gibson ends up on the Tigers team. Cameron Maben and Chet Lemon. So before we get into the pitching, let's hear where your Uncle Joe got it wrong.
I missed your starting right fielder. Was that Kaline?
Kaline in right, batting fifth.
I would say Lance Parrish at catcher.
Parrish at catcher. So Parrish. So one of the things that I think you guys will enjoy the most is that you guys will have say as the season gets underway. If let's say Mickey Tettleton starts the season, 1 for 12, then we're going to see Parrish get more at bats. Some of these are going to be platoons. Obviously, you're going to see a guy like Greenberg and Cobb in there pretty much every day. You're probably going to see Trammell and Whitaker get most of the starts at that double play combination. But are there any omissions? I know I don't have Fryman this year. I actually did have Fryman last year.
What about DH?
All right, so great question, Paul. And I don't want this to get too political, but I do not utilize the designated hitter in the Utopian Baseball Universe. I've always been a fan of the National League style of play. I've never liked the DH. I understand why they have it. And the reason they brought it in 1973 was because attendance and offense in the American League were very low. And it was supposed to be a one-year pilot. And the Players Union basically said, we got to keep this. And now I know, it's in pretty much every major league there is. But I will promise you three gentlemen and everyone watching that I will never use a designated hitter in the Utopian Baseball Universe. Pitchers can rake here, okay, guys? Pitchers can hit. Pitchers are athletes. They work on it here. And because it is a National League style of play, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for a Cecil Fielder, a Kirk Gibson, a Lance Parrish to get at bats nightly in a pinch hitting role.
I wasn't sure if I was ready to make Kirk Gibson my DH, but I was definitely he'd be one of the first guys off my bench. There are a couple outfielders who I thought, maybe more for speed and defense than anything else, but I thought maybe Granderson could have earned himself a spot on the team, even as a pinch runner or someone who can cover some ground out in the outfield. And I thought if you wanted a representative of 68, Willie Horton could have made a case for himself in left field.
So Willie Horton's probably the best example of someone that I think would make a great splash come the off season when we look at how each team did and where can we improve these teams. I purposely wanted to leave some names off, and that is a name I'm targeting for 2022. Just to address Granderson, my daughter's favorite Met of all time is Curtis Granderson. So I had to do what I had to do as a father. Curtis Granderson makes the Mets roster. So
I'm glad he's in the league.
Definitely. He's definitely. I mean, he's a family favorite, and when I made the rosters, we had to make sure that Grandy was a Met. Let's look at the pitching here. Detroit was, I think, top 5 in all the league last year in pitching. Jack Morris going to get the start on opening day against Colorado. Then they come back with Justin Verlander, Mark Fidrich, and then
play long enough.
They start a season with Arizona, and it's going to be Denny McLain, Bill Foster from the Negro Leagues, and then Morris again, and then Mickey Lolich and Dan Petrie on this team. So just to address Paul's comment that Fidrich didn't play long enough. So these rosters are in no way indicative of the 30 best players. It's a really good mix of greats, favorites, current players, characters. I wanted to get kind of a nice mix, and Fidrich,
he was definitely a character.
From what I read, I mean, for like 2 or 3 years, there was no one better. So I felt like I had to have him. And as it turned out, he pitched really well in this format last year.
And Willie Hernandez, is he a reliever or is he not on the roster?
So let's actually get right to the bullpen. We've got Todd Jones, Willie Hernandez, Mike Henneman, Aurelio Lopez, Shane Green, Brian Garcia, and John Hiller.
Okay.
So again, if we're not hearing a particular name, they could be on a different roster. They might come in next year. They may have been on last year. I will have you guys know that as of right now, this is only the second year of this. A player is going to be tied to the team. I don't want to have too much movement. It's just going to be a logistical nightmare for me if I have trades and waivers and all that stuff. So I want to keep, fans of teams interested by keeping their favorite players on these rosters. You guys got Verlander back, so Verlander's a Tiger. You're getting Fidrich in his prime. You're getting Jack Morris in his prime. Like I said, Fryman and Cash were on the rosters last year. We could always bring them back at some point. Yeah, so that's basically the roster here. Anyone else that I'm leaving out, Paul?
He didn't play that long. He was a troubled guy, but what about Ron Lafleur? He stole over 400 bases. He hit 300 several times back when the Tigers really didn't have anybody hitting 300. Tragic story, but, he put up some numbers.
So Ron Lafleur is I'll just put it this way. You will see Ron Lafleur at some point. I can't guarantee he's going to be a Tiger. There's another team that I had in mind for him. So when it comes to make that decision in November, December, I'll probably reach out to you guys and we can kind of work on that. But Ron Lafleur will be in the Utopian Baseball Universe at some point. It just, I keep it at 30 per team, and I do want to add people every year just to kind of keep it interesting.
A question for you, Joey. Since you had Jim Leland on the phone today, what are his plans for kind of reining in Ty Cobb? Is it going to be his team, or what kind of leash is Cobb on this year?
These are my favorite types of questions.
And is Cobb going to work well with K-Line? I mean, is there any chemistry issues we need to be aware of here in Utopia, Detroit?
So a fantastic question. So last year, obviously, we did season 1. Cobb got along great with everyone. There's no racism in the Utopian Baseball Universe. There's no sexism. There's no steroids. There's no banging of garbage cans. The chemistry on this team was fine. This team was actually in first place in late August before Cincinnati ran away with it. I anticipate them being very good this year. I think they're going to score runs. Obviously, they had the number one pitcher last year in Morris. I think Cobb's going to be just fine. As long as he keeps hitting 359 like he did last year, and as long as Greenberg keeps knocking in 114, I think we're going to be good.
And Ernie Harwell's voice is robust for the season. He's on the mic.
Ernie Harwell, and as it turns out, the last thing I did before I started doing these shows was I made voice of the game cards for the set that I'm releasing, and Ernie Harwell is indeed the voice of the Tigers for 2021.
Love it.
All right, guys. We've got some questions and comments from the peanut gallery here, and it's just one guy. That doesn't mean that we have one viewer, but we have one guy commenting. So let's get to Andy Pfeffer. He has a question. Anyone here can answer. This is our show. Is Ty Cobb the man, not the player, misunderstood by modern fans? I've heard an argument to that effect before. Now,
yes, he most certainly.
Go ahead, Brett.
There's a lot of research that's been done. Most of the smearing of Cobb's character was done by one reporter, and it's widely thought it was done to get readers. And that reporter's stuff, I think his last name was Stump, was turned into the movie with Tommy Lee Jones and everything else that we've seen. But if you actually look at real things, there's actually a Facebook group talking about the true legacy of Ty Cobb. You can look it up, and it's actually, I think it's his granddaughter's is in there as well. You can actually talk to a family member. But yeah, a lot of what you've read and hear about just isn't true. And there's even pictures of him with black players getting along. It's just he was definitely ornery. He got into some fights, but it wasn't race-based. It was just he was very driven to be the best on the field.
Competitive. I've read two Ty Cobb books. The Al Stump book, I've heard from many other writers that claim that there's a lot of false information in that book, and that he is indeed misunderstood. So I agree with that. That's why I actually had people ask me last year, how are you going to put a racist like Ty Cobb in there? And I'm like, well, I don't know if he was or not. Because, one book claimed that he was is pretty much universally agreed was a lot of incorrect stuff in there. So great question by Andy. Andy also says he's also heard that he once had tonsils removed without anesthesia. That could be. It sounds like Ty Cobb.
Yeah.
That sounds like something he could do. All right, so this question, we'll pose this to the panel. What was it like in Detroit when Prince Fielder came to the Tigers?
It was exciting. It was cool to see a former Tigers son play. I'm a little bit younger, so Cecil Fielder was here when I was 9, 10, 11 years old. And then to see his own kid that's a couple years younger than me, I can remember when he was hitting home runs at Tiger Stadium in batting practice as like a 16-year-old kid. So maybe a little bit younger. I mean, it was around that age. So it was cool to see him come and follow in his dad's footsteps. It was a bummer that the Tigers kind of petered out with him there. They had Cabrera, Fielder, and Martinez in the middle of the lineup that were all like base-to-base runners, so no one could really get a double. But, yeah, it was an exciting couple of years. I wish it could have lasted longer, but we went out in the end getting Kinsler because he had to leave for injuries, and we had Kinsler for a couple of years there.
I got one of my favorite Prince Fielder stories. There was a game I was watching, and the Tigers were up, and the pitcher tried to put one in the batter's ear, and Prince was on deck. And so, guys started going at each other, and Prince walked up, and he just went like this, and nobody did anything. Ain't nobody fixing the tangle with Prince Fielder. Everybody just chilled out as soon as Prince walked up. They didn't want no part of him.
It was nice to see him finally leave the Brewers. He was a Pirates killer for a number of those years there in Milwaukee.
Yeah, and we hated to see him go. We knew it was going to happen. The way he would answer questions at the end of that 08 season, we knew it was going to happen, or 11, I'm sorry. So we knew it was going to happen. But, yeah, it's a shame that his career was cut short. Andy says Johnny Bench better than Pudge. Yeah, I mean, I think offensively I would take Bench. I would definitely take Pudge's defense. Pudge, by the way, is on the Rangers roster. So just to clarify that. What do you should we Brewers fans be happy that Jordan Zimmerman is in the organization?
Depends on if he actually makes a good comeback or not. He seems to be a good character guy. He just was injured and could not get over that. He had the best April basically of any starter ever, and then fell apart for 4 years. So I hope he does do well, going to his home state. It'd be good to see him do well.
I got to be honest, and I'm ashamed to admit that I wasn't aware that Zimmerman was a Brewer. When did this happen?
It was, about a month ago or so. He signed a minor league deal to go to spring training.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't aware of that. So Andy, breaking news to me, the host of the show was not aware of that. So that's awesome. Last question here. Which baseball card is the best ever, and why is it 1978's Topps Molitor Trammell rookie card?
I haven't actually seen that one for sure, but I would argue the Lou Whitaker rookie card's better just because he's my favorite of all time, and I have no other reason for it other than that.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a one favorite card. I mean, I have favorite sets. I love the 82 top set. I love the 87 top set. I love the 75 top set. It's one of the borders I had in mind when I started making my cards here.
Is the one you're referring to the one that also had it was the rookie shortstops that also had Klutz and Washington? Is that the card?
We'll wait for Andy to respond. I think it is. I think there were 3 or 4 players.
There were the 4 of them kind of in a grid.
Yeah, I think it was 4.
Yeah, I think that was what Topps put out. Okay.
Yeah. So that's all the comments and questions I have. Guys, I want to thank you guys for a really fun, unique show. At some point, I'd love to have everyone back when the season starts. Obviously, when the Tigers do something cool, I might reach out to you and say, do you have 5 minutes or so tonight, and we can get you on again. So I want to thank Matt, Brett, and Paul for being with me tonight. We've only got 3 of these left, folks. Tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, this is another unique and fun show. Eric C. Gray is going to read from his baseball book, Bases to Bleachers, and we're going to talk Giants and reveal the Giants roster. Friday is the last scheduled show, Atlanta Braves with Jerry Grillo. And then we had one rainout. Monday, our guest was sick, so we're gonna do that very soon, hopefully. I'm going to reach out to them tomorrow. That might be Saturday. If they can come on, that'll be the Texas Rangers. So again, I want to thank Matt, Brett, and Paul for the first cycle in show history. I was the single by far.
Thank you, Joey. I had a blast.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Appreciate it.
It's been a great group. Glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, thanks for being members, and everyone watching. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Hey, real quick, Matt, my dad's got season tickets to the Pirates spring training in Bradenton.
Nice.
Very good.
We try to get down there at least once. Didn't make it this year because of COVID, obviously, but so I've been kind of a borderline Pirates fan because of that.
Nice. A lot of dark years, you learn to become teams of other cities in your geographic area.
I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Detroit, Baltimore, I have a soft spot for both of those in the AL.
Sounds like a Detroit fan in football. Can't root for the Lions all the time. Got to have somebody else.
Just to throw one more anomaly in there, I'm a Pittsburgher who's a diehard Bills guy. So finally getting our piece of the pie this year.
How about them Cowboys?
If Dak, we're going on a tangent, but Dak Prescott better be worth a fraction of that money. I don't know what Jerry's thinking, but that's a conversation that's on Jerry's conscience.
We're not happy about that contract down here. Let me tell you that much. It's great meeting all you guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being on, guys, and we'll see you guys tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Take care.
Thanks for being patient with the tech stuff. I don't know what happened, but I'm glad it worked out.
No problem.
All right, later.
Thanks, guys.